What is up, everybody? Happy Monday. It's good to be back at it. I meant to do a video yesterday and I ended up running out of time. My wife and I were hanging out and the day just got away from me. But there's a lot that's been going on between Thursday night and today. So first thing I want to do is discuss UFC Austin. It was a good card. It was definitely worth staying up and watching, even though it came on a lot earlier than the usual pay-per-view. I'm going to get into what everybody's talking about, which is the main card, the co-main event, all that stuff. But I'm going to take a different approach to what I want to say based off of that card. And it's something that I've been kind of echoing for a while. It's not going to make any friends, but it's something that needs to be said. Women's mixed martial arts should not be in the UFC. There are some women who their skill sets lead them to deserve to be in the UFC, but most of the women who fight in the UFC shouldn't be there. Their level, based on ranking wise, like the number 10 woman compared to the number 10 man in any division, it's night and day. There's no guy with the skill set of the 10th ranked UFC flyweight that's going to be the 10th ranked UFC male flyweight, or pretty much 10 in any division. Maybe heavyweight, because heavyweights have the least amount of skill because they're the biggest. But I've been saying it for a while. I've been watching a lot of women in the UFC that are on these cards, and it's like they shouldn't be here. You know, any chick that loses to Macy Barber looks like they've never trained a day in their life, because Macy Barber's not that good. Anyone that loses to Miesha Tate shouldn't ever fight again, because Miesha Tate sucks. Miesha Tate was one of the first female fighters. She was a high school wrestler, and she looks like she's never trained a day of anything but high school wrestling. She's not very good. People think she's hot. I don't think she's hot. She's got big fake tits, and when she trains, she has a nice ass, but I don't look at her as like a very hot chick. And most importantly, and maybe I'm just different on this, she's a fucking idiot. Like, you could tell by the way she talks and uhs and ums and looks like 3-syllable words cause her brain to overheat. She's not a good fighter. I don't know how Holly Holm let her win to become champion. And the worst part about Miesha is that she's a dumb fighter. If you look at her second fight with Rousey, Rousey wasn't a good fighter either. She was just a chick that did judo long enough to not let the nerves of the crowd get to her. But the second fight that Miesha had with Ronda, Miesha, if she had just learned to keep it standing, she would have won the fight, because her 1-2 was beating Ronda's. But she kept trying to wrestle with her, and a high school wrestler is not going to take down an Olympic judoka. And that's exactly what happened. But the point is the girl that fought Miesha Tate this weekend, her name is Julia Avila, I think. I've never seen a fighter that bad in my life. She hasn't fought since June 2021, which is 2.5 years ago. At some point, she had a kid in there. But she doesn't even look like she's trained 2.5 years. I've never seen a fighter in the cage look so awful. She looked like a chick that was taking cardio kickboxing classes and wasn't very good at them and signed her name on the wrong piece of paper and ended up signing up for a fight. The way she stood when she was trying to throw punches, how she didn't prepare at all for takedowns, had no idea what to do on the ground. I have no idea how that woman won 9 fights. I don't know how, after 2.5 years of not fighting, she was ranked 13th, other than there must only be 6 people in the division. But Julia Avila is probably the worst fighter I've ever seen. And for her to be the headliner of the undercard is an absolute joke. There are women who have good skills that fought in the UFC. Amanda is the best. Cyborg has skills. Rose has skills. Joanna has skills. Weili Zhang, there's a lot of hype around her. I'm not super impressed. Valentina has a lot of skills. I would say Grasso, because she's beat Valentina twice, even though one of them was considered a draw. But that's pretty much it. Maybe Holly Holm. But Holly's skills are pretty much one way. It's all stand-up. But besides that, like, the rest of those women shouldn't be there. Like, Jessica Ai is is she was a title contender, and if you watch her fight, their skill set is so far behind the men's skill set that they should just be Invicta. They should just have their own division until their skill set leads them to have a lot of people. There's a lot of women who compete. There's no shortage of women competing. It's not like golf or boxing. But man, these women are bad. And that fight was just a super eyesore to watch. And it's pathetic that the UFC could look at a person like that and be like, yeah, we're going to sign you. Miesha Tate is a garbage fighter. She doesn't know anything of what she's doing except running face first at people, trying to take them down. And she's slow, she's awkward, she's unathletic. And there were so few women competing at her time that she made a name for herself. And now, after she retired, the game completely stepped up. And there are some women like Dan Hardy's wife looks like she could be good. She probably shouldn't be at 125. The chick she was competing against fought like an idiot. If I was the girl that I was competing against, Heather Hardy, I would have just clinched her for 2 rounds and made her wear my weight and kept her against the fence in the 3rd round. I would have jabbed her to death. But that's a big part of fighting is fight IQ, and a lot of these women just have no fight IQ. Like Tisha Torres, her fight with Macy Barber, like the takedowns. No, I'm sorry, her fight with Rose Namajunas. It was a rematch. This was a few years ago. I just remember watching. Like, how are you falling for these takedowns? How are you letting this happen to you? And what I realized after that fight, and I like Tisha. Like I used to train with Tisha, and she had a boyfriend at the time. And I'm just watching, like, how do you fall for that? It's pathetic. There's no guys in the UFC with skill sets as bad as some of the women that you see fighting on television, and it just shouldn't be the same. Like, Amanda was one of my favorite fighters. I think Amanda's a fucking animal, but her and Valentina and the women like that, like, they're so far ahead of all the other women that it's ridiculous to have these divisions. And I think it's just a waste of people's time and money to have it put on television, to be honest. So the women either need to step up, or I'm just going to continue to make videos saying women shouldn't be in the UFC. Regardless of that eyesore of a fight, the rest of the card, it was a banger. And we knew it was going to be. I knew, like, if you saw my predictions, I was leaning more towards Sarukian. I thought that his striking brought something different than Gamrot brought to the fight with Dariush, and I was right. It didn't even hit the ground. His speed. Dariush is a guy that I don't think has a lot of natural athleticism. I think he does jiu-jitsu. He looks like the kind of guy that might be really hard to deal with in a jiu-jitsu gi. He looks like he has super strong jiu-jitsu grips, and his ability to roll and do jiu-jitsu is probably second to none. Like, that dude could probably do I know he's won the worlds as like a blue belt, a purple belt, and a brown belt. He might even won them as a white belt. And he looks like a guy who would be more successful and make it to the higher echelon than he would fighting. Because I think that his natural athleticism is pushed to its limits. So it's you have a guy he probably doesn't naturally move very well. He probably trains so hard and it's gotten to the point where he can move, but he's just stuck in a certain gear, and the speed difference is what cost him. I think the right hand that Sarukian threw, that was a hook, before he threw the knee and then the punch after the knee, there was a right hook that people were saying was blocked. I think that actually was partially blocked, and it partially hit Dariush here. And then because as he came up to avoid the knee, his eyes were already like this, and that's when he got caught with the straight that dropped him. I think that punch is actually the one that hurt him. The people think it was blocked. Regardless, Sarukian's good, man. He's got really, really good wrestling and grappling, but he can bang too when it needs to. And we saw that there. Now, I would think that he's going to get Gaethje next, unless Oliveira pulls out of the next title fight. I think Gaethje and Sarukian would be an awesome fight. The speed advantage won't be there for Sarukian like it was against Dariush, but his wrestling and grappling is at a different level than Gaethje's, and that could make a difference there. We'll see what happens next, though. Co-main event, the Bobby Green. Bobby Green is one of those guys that doesn't give a fuck. And because he doesn't give a fuck, he's going to stand in front of you with his hands down and talk shit and try to make you fight his fight and not give a fuck whether he wins or loses. And Kevin Holland has the same attitude. I will always envy those guys for that, because I stopped competing after 4 fights because I had lost the desire, because I put so much pressure on myself to not lose, and I hated training because it just wasn't fun anymore. And those guys, I'm so envious of the attitude that those guys possess when it comes to getting in the cage. The problem with that attitude is sometimes you get lit up. And Bobby Green, you know, he's got his hands down and he's talking shit to a dude that has a much bigger reach advantage on him and is much taller than him, and trying to get Turner to play Bobby Green's game cost Bobby Green the fight. He got cracked, ended up getting KO'd. I don't think it was as bad of a stoppage as people are making it out to be, because when you watch it in real time, Bobby looks like his arms are trying to move and defend himself. Who knows? You know, it could have been stopped a little earlier, but it might have been one of those things that if they stopped it after the first or second punch, they'll, it stopped too soon. Regardless, that's a good win for Turner. I know he's looking to bounce back after some setbacks here and there, especially what happened in the Hooker fight, the way he was controlling it and let it slip away. So that's good news for him. Figueiredo looked a lot better than I thought he would. I just wish he wouldn't have those lulls in the fight where he takes like 2 minutes and just moves to the side, moves to the side, moves to the side, moves to the side, and then cracks you with a 2. So he looked really good in that fight. Font needs to use more than just his jab to win fights. I like Font. He's a Boston guy. I think he's from Woburn. But yeah, good debut for Figueiredo. He looks good at that weight. He looked like he was feeling good. So we'll see where he's going to end up going from there. Sorry, I got a fly in here. So that was that. And, you know, the rest of the card went as it was. There was a lot of bonuses given out. There was a lot of weird finishes, a couple of slam finishes, one from Close and then one from... is it Gunderson or something like that? A couple slam finishes in a row. That was pretty wild. These dudes have to realize when you're getting picked up, like, when to let go. I don't know why you're holding on to it for so long. Or figure out a way to not get picked up by hooking the leg. But you live and you learn. So that's that as far as the UFC goes. I'm going to do another quick one on the NFL because it was a garbage NFL weekend. But yeah, we've got one more card, and then the last one of the year, which is December 16th, and with Colby and Leon, which should be a wild one. All right, guys, see you on the next video.